Okay, so we're going to move through kind of a gentle flowing practice today. I'm going to do the whole practice without any props other than my mat because not all of us have props at home. Of course, as with any practice, just choose the variation of the pose that feels best for you and your body today. Modify in any way that feels like it's serving you. Feel free to bring in more challenge if that's what you feel like you need. And I'm just going to kind of start and flow through, and then we can regroup at the end if anybody wants to make comments or questions or ask for additional days or times or anything like that. So we will start standing. So wherever you are, in your home, in your office, in your studio, on a mat or not, just coming into an easy standing position, not thinking too much about the alignment of your feet right now, but just allowing them to find a space that's comfortable. And then as you start to settle into the connection at the soles of the feet, imagine that sense of rootedness or groundedness. So your feet are really drawing downward toward the earth. And as we hang on to that sense of grounding, we'll start to draw long and tall in the spine. So imagining that point right at the center of the top of the head, and it's gently drawing up and away. So we have this spaciousness created between the vertebrae. And as we hang on to that length in the spine, we'll invite a little more softness into the shoulders, allowing the hands to just rest easily at the sides. Palms can face the thighs if you like. They can open toward the front of the room that you're in if you like. And finding a little point to gaze, maybe a few feet off the front of your mat, or if it's comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. And taking a moment to just check in with your physical self here, scanning through the body, noticing anything, maybe asking for a little extra attention, extra gentleness, extra stretch. And then bringing your awareness to your breath and just checking in with a few breaths just as they are, not changing anything. Noticing the quality of your inhale, any movement that's coming with it. How deep is it? The quality of your exhale. And then I'm gonna add something a little different today than what I would normally do in my practice. I'm gonna have us go ahead and bring our hands to heart center. So using an inhale, sweeping the hands wide and overhead, letting the palms meet, and then using your exhale to just draw the hands to heart center. And then either softening the gaze a little more or closing the eyes completely, bowing the head a little bit, and then I want us here to check in with our nervous systems. So I know maybe that's a little nuanced, but whatever that means for you, just take a moment to just notice. Notice what that brings up for you. Notice any sensations that it creates. And then go ahead and open the eyes. And we're going to imagine anything that feels fluttery, jittery, nervous, anxious, isn't serving us in that nervous system, we're going to let it go. So take a little bit of a bend in the knees. Imagine whatever that stuff is that you don't need anymore, and we're just going to part the hands, let the hands come out wide. Just let go of whatever that is in your nervous system. Bring the hands up overhead again. Let the palms meet. Bring the hands down to heart center. Again, softening the gaze. We're closing the eyes, finding a little bow in the head. And now I want you to call to mind just the people that are closest to you in your life, the people who love you or who you love, maybe people that you can be close to right now, or maybe people that you feel separated from. And I just want us to hold those people in our minds and our heart space for a moment. And then again, just meeting with the eyes open, and we're again going to find that big inhale to bring the hands out wide and overhead. Let the palms meet, and this time we'll melt all the way over into a forward fold. So let those palms meet, draw down through the heart center. Take a big bend in your knees, start to hinge at the hips. Imagine you're just going to melt all the way down over your thighs. Really soft spine, fingertips reach for the floor, or maybe you can take a big enough bend into the knees that fingertips actually come down onto your mat And then just create a little juicy movement in your hips and your spine, so you can lift the heels or the toes or figure eight the hips. And then finding stillness, dangling into the upper body, dangling into the arms. Slow roll yourself all the way back up towards standing. Finding that easy, comfortable mountain pose at the top, taking a little shoulder roll. And then again, inhaling, lifting the hands up overhead, letting the palms meet, big bend into the knees, hinging at the hips, melting down over the thighs, forward fold. This time we'll add in a half fold, so pressing into the feet, straightening the knees, flattening the back, letting your hands slide to your shins or your thighs, imagining a nice long spine, crown of the head reaching away from the tailbone. And with your next exhale, bending back into the knees, sliding the hands down, forward fold. Either taking another juicy slow roll up if that feels good, or this time circle sweep to standing, pressing into the feet to lift, hands come wide and overhead, upward hands or upward salute. And then drawing the hands down through heart center, bringing the hands back to the sides. We're back in our Tadasana, standing mountain. And we're going to do that one more time. This time just one movement, one breath. So maybe you're a little faster or a little slower than me. Waiting for your next inhale, lifting the hands. Exhaling over to your folds. Inhaling to a half forward fold. Exhaling, softening to plant the hands. And then a slow roll or a circle sweep. Finding that mountain pose, Tadasana. And we'll move through that again. This time we'll meet in forward fold and we'll step back into tabletop, hands and knees. So that next inhale will lift. Exhale, we'll fold over. Inhale, find that flat back, half forward fold. And then a deep, deep bend of the knees such that we can bring our fingertips or maybe palms down onto the mat. We'll step back one leg at a time onto the knees. And then just checking to see that the knees and the feet are about the same distance apart as the hip joints, with the hip over the knee. The fingertips are nice and wide, a little weight in the finger pads as well as the palms, and spine nice and long. Moving into a little spinal flexion extension, often called cat-cow. So a big inhale to prepare, just imagining a long spine. And then as you begin your exhale, start to send your tailbone toward your heels. Roll that rounding movement up the spine. Mid-spine lifts up toward the ceiling and the gaze comes down. And then with your inhale, starting to lift the tailbone, lower the belly, open the heart, open the throat, lift the gaze. Exhaling, pressing, rounding up. Inhaling, lowering to open the heart. And moving through one more movement each direction. And then we'll find our way back to neutral. And then moving into some side bends, lateral flexion. So we're going to start again in that neutral tabletop, and we're going to keep the navel pretty much over the center of our mat. We find that big inhale to prepare. And then as we exhale, head, shoulders, hips come out to the left. Knee stays connected, left foot slides out, and we look at our foot. Inhale brings everything through neutral. Exhale, side bend, opposite side. Inhale brings us through neutral. Exhale, side bend, lateral flexion. And finding one more each direction. And back through neutral. And then moving into a twist. spinal rotation. So still keeping the palms as they are, but we'll slide the left leg back behind us, lift the knee, and then bring that left leg all the way out to your left side. Flip the toes to face toward the top of your mat. Keep the whole sole of the foot flat on the floor. And then waiting for your next in-breath, twist your heart open toward that extended left leg. Lift the left fingertips, gazing past that hand as it reaches maybe toward corner of wall and ceiling, depending on your body, maybe toward the ceiling. And then with an exhale, turning the heart back down toward the mat. That hand is going to briefly reach under right arm. Inhale will bring us back up. And an exhale, we'll draw the heart toward the floor, threading the needle, hand reaching under opposite arm. And finding one more inhale to expand upward. With an exhale, sweeping that hand back to the mat. And then we're going to slide our left leg back in line with the hip. You're going to keep the knee lifted and then actually slide that foot all the way across your right leg so it comes off the right side of your mat, and then bring your gaze all the way around to that foot. And bringing the gaze forward, foot comes back in line with the hip, knee settles down. Find a little movement for hips and spine before we flow to that second side. Right toes slide back, leg comes out to the right side, toes turn to face the top of the mat, and the sole of the foot is flat. Full exhale here, and then as we inhale, turning the heart toward right leg, right fingertips lift, gaze follows the hand. Exhale, turning the heart down, hand reaches under opposite arm. Finding one more big inhale to expand upward. Exhale to bring the hand back to the mat. Foot slides back in line with the hip, and then across the opposite side, gaze comes around to that foot, big side bend. And bringing the gaze forward, foot comes back in line with the hip. We're going to bring that knee down to the mat, and we're either going to find a little juicy movement here in tabletop, or if it feels good, it's in your practice. Step the hands out a couple inches forward of the shoulder joint. Tuck the toes, start to lift the tailbone, send the knees back. The legs are long, but knees aren't locked. Armpits gently rotating in toward one another, and we keep those neutral curves of the spine. Downward facing dog. Maybe find a little juicy movement here in down dog. And then either moving through your downward facing dog or your tabletop to come to forward fold at the top of the mat. So from down dog, I'll take a deep bend into the knees, bring the gaze forward, slow walk those feet forward toward hands. If I'm in tabletop, I'm going to cup up onto the tips of my fingers. I'm going to pick one foot and step it forward, tuck the toe on the back foot, lift the knee, slide that foot forward so we all find forward fold, and then find a slow roll or a circle sweep, finding your way back to Tadasana, easy standing pose. And once more, inhaling, lifting the arms, exhaling over fold, inhaling through that half fold. This time softening to plant both hands, so maybe we're on fingertips, maybe we're on palms. We're going to bring our weight over to our left leg so we can lift the right heel, this time stepping back on the knee just on the right leg and coming up into a monk's lunge. So we'll untuck that right toe, step the hands up onto the left knee. So we've got about a 90-degree bend in both knees, and we're neutral in the spine. And then we're just gonna lift the hands up overhead, palms face one another, seat those arms down into the shoulder sockets. And then float the hands around to the low back. Interlace the fingers behind the low back. Imagine you're going to draw those hands toward your right heel. Let the heart open, throat open, gaze come high. And unlacing the fingers, lifting those arms all the way back overhead. And then bringing the hands down to frame that left foot. Maybe we're up on fingertips to create a little more space for that front leg. Maybe we have space to be on palms. We'll tuck the right toe, lift the knee, slide or scoot, or maybe float that foot all the way forward to meet the left. Back in, forward fold, slow roll or circle sweep your way up. And inhaling, lift. Exhaling our way over. Inhaling through that half fold, flat back. Softening, big bend in the knees, coming down onto fingertips or palms. Weight comes to the right. We'll lift that left heel. Step back onto the knee, untuck the toe. Maybe step the hands up to the front knee. Maybe this time just bring the hands directly overhead, monk lunge. Option for that same heart opener this side if you like, floating the hands to the low back, interlacing the fingers, or drawing the elbows down and out to cactus arms, pressing forearms toward the wall behind you, lifting the throat, lifting the gaze. Sending hands back overhead, bringing hands down to frame that front foot. Tucking the back toe, lifting the knee. Slide, scoot, or float forward, forward fold, slow roll, circle sweep up, mountain. And then we'll go through a similar movement. This time we'll step the leg back just a little further, so we'll be in a low lunge instead of a monk lunge, so a little bit more of a stretch. Inhaling, lifting the hands. Exhaling our way over. Inhaling through your half forward fold. And softening to plant both the hands. Let's bring weight over to the right foot. We'll send the left leg back. So again, I'm going to lift that heel. I'm going to slide or scoop that leg a little further back the mat so that when I lower my knee and untuck my toe, my right knee is right over my right ankle and I've got a pretty good stretch in the front of the left hip. And then same options here. I can step hands up to front knee, or if it feels better, I'm just going to send those arms directly overhead, finding those nice, solid, stable shoulders. Vinyasa, low lunge. And then with your next exhale, we're just going to bring those hands down to frame the front foot. We're going to stay up on the tips of the fingers to create a little more space and try to stay long in the spine. And then start to rock your hips back toward your left heel, straighten your right knee, just going as far as you can go, keeping the sole of the right foot fully connected for now. And we'll find a breath there. Maybe notice where you feel stretch or sensation. And then with your next exhale, start to peel that right foot up. Pull the toes back toward the shin. Maybe palms come down onto the mat. You round through the spine. Drop head, shoulders toward right knee for half split or half monkey. We'll start to slow walk our way forward, reconnecting that sole of the right foot, letting the knee land right over the ankle, and then moving into a revolved low lunge. So the left hand is going to connect to the floor just inside the right foot. We're going to imagine engaging the inner right thigh to keep the knee over the ankle while we twist the heart and belly toward this right thigh, and hand can slide to the hip. Or if you like, you can send it overhead. If there's a bind in your practice, you can bend that elbow and slide the top of the hand or the forearm to the low back. One more big inhale here. And then as you exhale, start to sweep that right hand back down toward the mat. And then we're actually going to slide it inside. our right foot, and we're gonna heel toe that right foot just to the right edge of the mat. Let that knee fall outside the ankle just a little bit now, so we're starting to come onto the lateral edge of the foot. And then tuck your left toe and float your knee. So this is a variation of lizard. And then lower that knee back down. Untuck the toe, bring that right foot back in line with the hip, hand comes outside, coming back up onto the fingertips, just rock your hips back and forth a few times from that low lunge toward half split position. And then coming all the way forward, planting fingertips or palms, tucking the left toe, lifting the knee, slide, scoot, or float that left foot all the way forward, forward fold, slow roll or circle sweep your way up. Finding your Tadasana at the top of your mat. And inhaling to lift, exhaling to lower. Inhaling through your half forward fold. Exhaling, softening enough that you can plant fingertips or palms, bringing weight to the left leg, lifting that right ankle, sliding it a little further back the mat. When we lower the knee and untuck the toe, left knee over ankle, little stretch for the front of the right hip. And we'll step hands up to the front knee or float the hands overhead. Vinyasa. Low lunge, find a breath, just feeling those arms seated into shoulder sockets and hips sinking nice and heavy toward the earth. Oh, I got up and forgot which side we were on. Okay, I got it. And inhaling into the length of the fingers, exhaling, bringing the hands down to frame that front foot. We're going to be on the tips of the fingers. Sole of the left foot stays connected, trying to keep the spine long, rocking hips back toward right heel. With your next exhale, softening backward, left foot lifts, toes pull toward shins, head, shoulders, and melt down toward front knee. And starting to walk forward, connecting the sole of the foot. Knee lands back over the ankle. We'll plant the right hand just inside the left foot, keeping that thigh engaged to keep knee over ankle. We'll twist heart belly toward left thigh, slide the hand to the hip, option overhead, option a bind. And turning hard back down toward the mat, we'll float or slide that left hand down, bring it inside the left foot steps to the edge of the mat. Then we'll just kind of let that knee relax a little, fall outside the ankle, coming onto the outer edge of the foot, and then right toe tucks, knee lifts. Right knee down, untucking the toe, bringing that foot back in line with the hip. Left hand comes outside, up on the fingertips, so we can create space to rock the hips back and forth from low lunge toward half split. And rocking the hips forward. Finding nice supportive hands, tucking the right toe, lifting the knee, slide or float that back foot all the way forward, forward fold, slow roll or circle sweep your way up, finding your mountain. And from this Tadasana, again, we'll inhale to sweep the hands up overhead, but we'll exhale into chair. So I'm going to bring the palms together, bring the hands to heart center, and I'm going to sink my hips back and down and bring a little more weight into my heels. And I'm going to try to keep my spine nice and neutral. So I'm not swayed in the back, but I haven't lost my curve. I'm right in the middle. Low back feels good. I can see my toes. If I lose any of that, I'm going to decrease my angle in my knees a little bit. And then we'll lift and lower from chair through upward hands a few times. So then taking a little deeper bend into the knees, part the hands out wide, pressing into the feet to lift. Come back to that upward hands or upward salutes. Exhaling, sending the hips back and down, hands coming through heart center, chair pose or fierce pose. Inhaling, pressing to lift. Exhaling, lower. And we'll do this one more time, and then we'll pause in chair. So letting those hips sink back and down, checking in with the low back. You can see my toes, maybe inviting a little more softness in shoulders. And just find a breath in fierce pose. If you need more challenge, rock your weight forward onto the toes and balls of the feet and lift your heels into a balancing chair or elevated chair. And if you're lifted, go ahead and lower your heels. And then one more time, pressing into the feet to lift, bringing those hands overhead. This time, exhaling all the way back over to forward fold, bending into the knees, melting over the thighs, reaching fingertips toward the floor. Maybe you can take a deep enough bend in the knees to bring fingertips to the floor. And then we're just going to walk or reach those hands over toward the outside edge of the right foot, finding a little more stretch. Left thigh, hip, side body. Back through center, over to the second side. And back through center, and then find that slow roll or circle, sweep back up. This time when we get to the top, bringing both hands around to the low, low back, resting the hands the very, very low, low back, top of the glutes, and then just pressing the hips forward, letting that low back really extend, heart open, gaze come high. And then lifting back toward neutral, we'll slide the hands all the way back to heart center, but we'll interlace the fingers at heart center. Flip the palms to face toward the front of your mat, and then round through the spine, press away, gaze comes down toward the feet. And then keeping the fingers interlaced, starting to press those hands up toward the ceiling. And then keeping the hands as they are, finding a little bit of a side bend. So big inhale, pressing those hands high as far as they'll comfortably go in elbows and shoulders. And then exhale, find a side bend to the left. Find a breath this side. Inhale takes you back through center. Exhale will take you to the second side. Inhale to lift through center. Exhale, part those fingers, dive all the way down. Forward fold, this time taking a deep, deep bend into the knees, planting the hands, stepping the legs back again, finding tabletop. This time bringing a little more width between the knees, letting the toes point toward one another, sending the hips back to the heels, finding a wide knee child's pose. Pressing fingertips down into the mat, keeping the palms lifted, making two little cone shapes, and then let head, neck, shoulders melt down toward the mat as far as they'll comfortably go. Flattening the palms, lifting back toward a tabletop, bringing the knees back in line with the hips, and then we're going to move into a little flow here, using a child's pose as our foundation. So we're gonna step down onto the forearms. Elbows are gonna connect just about under the shoulders. And we're gonna either rest the palms together or interlace the fingers. And then I'm gonna send my hips back toward my heels like I'm reaching for that child's pose, but my elbows stay connected. So I'm gonna feel a little stretch, maybe in shoulders or chest or back. And then I'm gonna lift through where we started. And then I'm gonna come a little forward, letting my hips come forward and down, gaze come just in front of the hands. Inhale, we'll lift back through where we started. Exhale, reaching hips to heels. Inhaling through where we started. This time, if you like, build a little more heat, coming a little further forward, hips drawing close to the ground, shoulders really far forward and down. Inhaling back through where we started. Exhaling, drawing the hips back. So maybe a smaller movement, maybe a broader movement, whatever feels good. We'll flow a few more times on your own. And then the next time you slide back, let the arms slide along with you. Unlacing the fingers, slide all the way back to a child's pose. Hips to heels, palms connected, head, neck, shoulders rest, or if it feels better for knees and low back, hips stay a little more elevated, and we walk the hands out. One more full breath. And then starting to make your way back toward tabletop. Either moving from your tabletop back toward forward fold at the top of your mat or moving through downward facing dog. Stepping the hands out a little, tucking the toes, lifting the tailbone. And then from downward facing dog, finding my big bend into the knees, belly toward thighs, gaze comes forward, slow walking the feet forward to the top of the mat. Forward fold, slow roller circle sweep up. And finding your Tadasana. Inhaling at the top, coming back through that upward hands, upward salute, exhaling all the way over, forward fold. Again, we're gonna step back, but option to step all the way back to plank. So either we're coming back onto the knees, we're in tabletop and flowing through child's pose, or stepping the legs all the way back, finding a plank pose, and then lowering knees, chest, chin to find cobra. So I'll lower the knees, keep the belly lifted, lowering heart toward hands. As I come to the floor, I'm just gonna slide my belly onto the floor, keeping elbows pulling toward the back of the room, using the low back, lifting the heart, lifting the gaze. Heart, gaze, come back down. Toes are tucked, knees connected, pressing under shoulders, lifting through a half plank. Lifting the knees, plank, lifting the tailbone, downward facing dog. So we're going to move through either a tabletop or a down dog to come to high lunge. So if we're in downward facing dog, we're going to sweep the right leg back behind us, hips are square, toes pulling, heel pressing. We're going to exhale to step that foot forward toward the hands. If we are in tabletop, we're going to step the left foot forward toward the hands. Walk it forward to the point where we've got that big stretch in the front of the left hip, right knee is over ankle, and then we'll tuck the left toe and lift the knee. And then once we find that position in the lower body, we'll step hands up to front knee or bring the hands overhead. So now we have a little more balance, a little more heat building for our high lunge or crescent pose. And then we're going to open up to a warrior two. So we're going to open our hips up to the left. We're going to turn the left toes out toward the left side of the mat. The heel is now connected and the outside edge of the foot is parallel to the short edge of our mat. We still have this nice deep bend in the right knee. And we'll float the hands down so they're parallel to the floor. Soften into the shoulders and gaze past the middle finger of the right hand. So option, stay here. Build a little more heat, or if you like, float both hands palm face up, straighten the front knee while you let the fingertips meet overhead. Gaze follows the fingertips, and hands float down, bending back into the front knee. Straightening the front knee, hands lift, gaze comes high, and bending into that front knee, hands lower. And Finding one more breath in warrior two, or if you're flowing once more. Meeting back in that deep bend in the front knee. Arms flow down, palms face the floor. And then we're actually going to straighten the front knee for a moment and just let the hands rest to the hips. We're going to take those right toes and turn them all the way in. So now that foot is also parallel to the short edge of our mat. And if my feet aren't level, I'm going to bring them equidistant from the top edge of my mat. And then I'm going to release the hands overhead with an inhale and exhale over to wide forward fold. Hinging at the hips, soft spine, melting down, fingertips reaching for or maybe touching the mat. And then just allowing your upper body to soften, the crown of your head to reach down toward your mat. And then gently walking both hands over towards your right foot. Maybe it feels like it's in reach. You could scoop the hands to the outer edge of the foot or ankle. Walking both hands back towards center and then over to the left. Walking both hands through center, let the upper body dangle, arms hang, slow roll back towards standing. And then bring in both heels in so the toes turn out and point toward the corners of your mat. Start to sink into a squat, so this is horse or goddess. If the knees are starting to go further than my ankle, I'm going to spread my stance a little wider so I can find a nice deep squat. And then we'll press into the feet, straighten the knees. Scoop the arms up overhead. This is sunflowers. Scooping skyward. Bending back into that squat. Keeping the spine long. Scoop hands toward the earth. And lifting, scooping up. Exhaling, scooping down. And finding one more exhale, scooping down. This time as you inhale, press into the feet, straighten the knees, send the hands out wide to the side, star pose. Just reach everything away from the navel. And then float the arms down parallel to the floor, moving back to our warrior two. So that left heel is going to reach back, so that foot's parallel to the short edge of our mat. Our right toes are going to turn forward, and we're going to sink back into that bend in the knee. We're going to find a big inhale, reaching through the fingertips. As you exhale, cartwheel your hands down to frame your right foot, lifting your left heel. Option, lower the left knee, rock the hips back a little, slide your right foot back, find tabletop. Option, keep the left knee lifted, slide the right foot back, find plank. You can hang out in plank for a breath. Half plank, you could find a little flow here. You could move into a child's pose. Finishing on whatever sort of movement feels good, and then moving back through either a tabletop or a downward facing dog to come toward forward fold at the top of your mat, eventually meeting in standing Tadasana. And from our standing foundation, inhaling, lifting the hands, exhaling our way over, forward fold. Taking that big bend into the knees, planting the hands, stepping back maybe to a tabletop, maybe to a plank. Flowing tabletop to child's pose or half plank, knees, chest, chin to find cobra. Eventually meeting back in either tabletop or downward facing dog. And then getting ready to move into that high lunge second side. So if we're in downward facing dog, we're going to ground that right foot, lift the left leg behind us, try to square the hips, reach through the heel, pull through the toe. Exhale, stepping that foot forward toward the hands. lifting the hands up, finding that high lunge, or if you float from tabletop, tuck in your back toe, lifting your knee. High lunge or crescent pose, opening up from here to your warrior two. Hips open to the right, right heel connects, hands float down parallel to the floor. And maybe you enjoy just staying in warrior two for a few breaths, softening into the shoulders, reaching through the fingertips. Or maybe you would enjoy floating the hands palm face up, straightening the front knee. Fingertips float overhead, gaze past the fingertips, floating the arms down, bending into the knee. And finding one more breath, or one more movement from wherever you're at. Meeting in warrior two, Virabhadrasana 2. And then we'll let the hands rest at the hips for a moment. Straighten that front knee. Turn all toes toward the front of your mat. Level out the feet as needed. Inhaling, lifting the hands. Exhaling over wide forward fold. And then again, taking both hands over toward the outside edge of that right foot, but this time as we do, we're gonna bend a little bit into the right knee, keeping the outer edge of the left foot connected, side lunge. Lifting back through center and then over to the second side. And then rocking a few times side to side here. So just a slightly faster movement, shifting back to the first side, letting that knee bend, and then back to the left. And then finding center. We're gonna be soft into the upper body as we roll our way back up towards standing. Letting the hands rest wherever's comfortable for a moment. Bringing both heels in, turning the toes to point toward corner of the mat. Winding your stance as needed so you can find that nice deep squat. And then this side, moonflowers. So again, we're gonna send those hands overhead as we straighten the knees, but we're gonna keep the palms active and just draw the hands out toward the corners of the room. Exhale, bending back into the knee. Keep those palms active. Draw elbows in toward low ribs. Inhaling, expanding everything out. Exhaling, drawing down and in. Elbows draw down and in. This side, finding one more inhale to expand everything out away from the navel. Exhale, we're gonna land in that horse pose or goddess squat. Option, pause, stay here, find your breath, or you can lift and lower one heel at a time. If you wanna build a little more heat, you can lift and lower both heels at a time, or you can lift and lower both heels, pause, find your breath. And if you're flowing or lifted, we'll lower the heels, waiting for your next inhale, expanding everything out away from the navel. Bringing the hands down parallel to the floor. We'll take that right heel toward the back of our mat. Left toes turn forward. We'll sink back into that bend in the knee. We're back in our Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. Inhale. Exhale, bringing the hands down to frame that left foot, lifting the right heel, maybe lowering the back knee, coming back to tabletop, maybe keeping it lifted, coming back to plank. Again, there could be whatever kind of juicy movement feels good for you here, and then we'll meet in a wide knee child's pose. Knees coming out to the sides of the mat, toes pointing together, hips coming to heels, hands can stay extended. You can draw the hands in and bring forehead down onto forearms or hands. And then in your wide knee child's pose, take a moment to just Notice all the spaces where you're connected to a prop or connected to another part of your body. Anywhere there's connection, support. And with a few deep inhales, easy exhales, imagine you could just soften into those spaces a little more, just letting them go. Waiting for your next in-breath, we're going to slow slide up into kneeling. So starting to walk the hands in toward the torso, rolling the torso up over the hips. And we'll bring the hips around to one side so we can send the legs out in front of us and find a seated bound angle. So the knees are going to be out to the side, the soles of the feet are going to meet. This is one that normally I really like to have props around. So if the hips or the knees or the low back don't like this, I'm going to have my feet far enough away that I can try to be comfortable in the hips and the low back. I'm just going to rest my hands on my knees for now. And we're going to move through two versions of a forward fold, first with neutral spine. So inhaling to create some nice length. And then as you exhale, imagine you're going to draw your heart toward your feet, just moving as far as you can go, keeping the spine long. And finding one more deep inhale here, and then as you exhale, rounding through the spine, hands can slide out toward your feet or walk toward the top of your mat. We'll round through the spine, let head, shoulders melt down toward the space between your legs or toward your feet. One more big exhale as you inhale, starting to slow roll your way back up toward long spine. And then we're going to bring the heels a little wide, bend the knees and lift them. Bring the hands to the floor just behind the hips, however's comfortable. We're going to lean back a little bit and just windshield wiper the legs back and forth a few times. So the leg falls to one side, opposite hip pops up. Way. And then we'll lift the legs back toward center. Bring the feet back in line with the hips. And if you landed near the back of your mat like I did, just take a little scoot forward so your tailbone's right around the center of your mat so we can lower down onto our backs. And we'll leave the knees bent and the soles of the feet on the floor for now. And we'll move into a bridge. So we're going to bring the feet close-ish to the glutes, but not so close that we can touch them if we reach down. Knees and feet are same distance apart as our hip joint. Hands are palm face down on either side of the hips. We'll find a big inhale at the bottom. First part of the exhale, imagine you're going to try to slide your tailbone toward your heels. You may start to get a little bit of lift. And then continuing that movement, peel your spine up off the mat a little bit at a time. Soles of the feet firmly pressing, knees gently pulling away from you. Firm in the lower body, but soft in head, neck, shoulders. And then starting to slow lower the spine back down onto the mat a little bit at a time. When you get to the bottom, bringing both bent knees into the belly. If they're in reach, bring the hands to the knees, give them a little squeeze, and then either find a little rocking or rolling or draw some knee circles in the air. And finding stillness, bringing the soles of the feet back down to the mat. We'll move through one more bridge. So option to add any other variation of bridge that you like here, or wheel, or any other back bend. back bend that feels good. I don't know what it is, so we're just going to keep going. So starting that same way, big inhale at the bottom, lengthening your tailbone toward your heels, peeling that spine up a little bit at a time. And maybe you'd like to add a different variation for arms. Or maybe just stay here and bridge for a breath. Slow rolling the spine back down onto the mat. This time leaving the left leg down, we're going to lift the right leg into the belly. Place that right ankle on the left thigh, moving into a figure four or supine pigeon prep. So we lift those legs into the belly. If it's comfortable, we bring hands to left hamstring or shin, and the legs gently draw in. Right knee reaches away, toes pull back towards shins. That left sole of the foot come back down to the mat, unwind the right leg, press both soles of the feet into the mat, lift the hips, recenter the spine. Right leg stays connected, left leg comes in, ankle finds the thigh, bring the thighs into the belly, left knee gently reaching away, toes drawing back towards shins. If it feels good, hands come to right hamstring or shin, help draw those legs in a little further. Releasing the legs, letting that right sole of the foot come back down. Unwinding the left leg, pressing both soles of the feet into the mat. Lift the hips, recenter the spine. Bring both bent knees into the belly again. And then moving into a happy baby. So knees fall out toward the armpits. Soles of the feet reach for the ceiling. Hands can come to the hamstrings, or if it feels good, to the outer edges of the feet. And we can rest here, or you can gently pull on one leg and then the other, finding a little rocking movement. And finding stillness, allowing the legs to come back down to the mat. And then take a moment here to just check in with your body again. How's your body feeling? And then moving through any last posture, any last little movement, any last stretch that feels good to end your practice. And then starting to make your way into a restful lying posture. So if you like Shavasana, corpse pose, maybe you are flat on your back with the legs a little wide, arms a little wide. If you have a pillow or a blanket handy, maybe you support the knees in a supported corpse or half corpse. You can roll over onto your side in fetal position. You can come back over onto your belly into child's pose. And whatever position you choose, we're going to choose something that will allow us to really find ease and stillness for a few moments. So wherever you landed, starting to feel back into the spaces where your body is resting on something. Resting on a mat, a floor, a prop, another part of your body. Coming back to that idea of using a few easy breaths to maybe soften, let go, relax, release a little more into those spaces. As we rest here for a moment, allowing the physical body to be completely at ease. allowing the breath to be soft and the mind to rest completely empty. Starting to bring some gentle movements back into the body. Maybe moving the hands or feet or turning the head side to side. Feel like you can end with a full body stretch. And then eventually starting to make your way toward an easy seated position. However feels best in the body or as part of your yoga ritual. And once you find your way to a seat, we'll bring the hands back to heart center. Find a little bow into the head. And then just calling back to mind all those loved ones that we thought of at the beginning of our practice. Ones that are close, the ones that are far. Just holding a little bit of love, gratitude, and maybe setting the intention to carry something off of your mat today. Taking some goodness or kindness or joy, sharing with those that we can be around, that we can see. And floating or fluttering the eyes open, and I would just like to say thank you so much